Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you, as always, here on the Cabral Concept on our Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday topic of the week. Today, we are going to go over a direct quote from one of the questions that I got on Instagram about how to eliminate lower belly bulge. That was the direct quote, lower belly bulge. So what we're going to talk about today is why body fat tends to accumulate on some people, or most of us, right around the belly button area and below. So we're going to go through that, but I'm also going to give you 3 steps that you need to control in order to be able to eliminate that lower belly bulge. So I want to dive right into it today because I actually get this question quite often, just in different variations. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to differentiate with you the difference between if you wake up and that body fat is there, or you wake up and your stomach is fairly flat. This is a really important topic to get, because if you wake up in the morning and you're feeling pretty lean or your stomach's feeling pretty flat, and then as the day goes on, it starts to bulge a little bit more, what we're looking at is an inflammatory and gut-based issue. Let me repeat that. If you wake up at the beginning of the day and your stomach is pretty flat, and then by the end of the day, it's bulging out a bit, okay? You're feeling like you're retaining more water. We're talking about an inflammation and most likely gut-based issue. So there's something wrong with the digestive system. Could be H. pylori, which is bacterial infection. Could be candida, yeast infection. Could be SIBO, bacteria imbalance inside of your intestines. Or could be parasites, okay? Those are the 4. And it's most likely the middle 2. Candida and SIBO. Now, it could be others, don't get me wrong, but if you have H. pylori, oftentimes you wake up and your stomach is actually a little bit bulging, a little bit swollen. But that's an issue, right? The good news is this. You can literally, like in this day and age, you can just run an at-home lab test and know for sure. There's 2 labs you would run. One is the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. Number 2 is the bacteria and parasite test that also tests for H. pylori. You run those 2 tests, you run all 4 things it could be. Honestly, it's that easy. It's that straightforward. Yes, you can add on the food sensitivity test, but those are the 2 most important ones. You can find those, my recommendations for those labs at stephencabral.com/labs. Yes, they get shipped right to your house. Yes, they are confidential. And yes, it comes with a plan and consultation with a certified health coach. So it doesn't get much better than that. That's how to differentiate that. Again, wake up, not bloated, get bloated as the day goes on, or the belly starts to bulge as the day goes on because you might not notice it. It's a digestive issue with some inflammatory component, and that can all be digestive based. Why is that a big issue? Because you can't fix it through going low carb. You can't fix it through dropping your calories. All you can do is reduce it to degrees, but it doesn't fix it. Because you need to rebalance the gut bacteria. You need to remove the excess bad bacteria, and you need to remove the yeast overgrowth. So that's the first step. That's extremely important because I find a lot of people are fighting an uphill battle that they will never win. All they're doing is getting like small wins during the day by like fasting for a longer period of time. I get it. I understand it. But the truth is there's an underlying root cause imbalance. And if you never address the underlying root cause imbalance, it's actually going to lead to health issues later in life. So forget about just the vanity standpoint, which is nothing wrong with that, okay? Think about the other health issues it's going to cause: potential autoimmune issues, cardiovascular, blood pressure, brain-based, skin rashes, many more. Because that's what happens when you have gut-based issues. When 80% of your immune system lives in and around the 26 feet of small and large intestine, that is the base of your immune system. And when it's constantly fighting what shouldn't be there, it leads to an overactive immune system, an imbalanced immune system. All right, so that's step number 1, and it's so important. Now, let's say you wake up and there is still a good amount of body fat there, and kind of pinch it and okay, yeah, that's excess, what's called subcutaneous body fat. And I'm not saying you can't have any body fat on your body. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about six-pack abs here today. I'm talking about just overall lean physique. You don't have to have abs. I'm just talking about being overall feeling good, looking good for you, for your body type. Good. I'm happy with that. And that's where I want to help to get you. But let's say that you're having a really difficult time getting it off and it begins to really just accumulate more around that midsection. There's two more steps we need to look at. The first one that everybody's talking about is insulin. Insulin matters. Why does insulin matter? Well, insulin will become elevated in the presence of glucose in your bloodstream. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means when there's more excess blood sugar in your bloodstream than should be there, meaning like more than 95 milligrams per deciliter, then your body's going to say, well, we need to produce more insulin. And the beta cells of the pancreas are going to produce more, activate more insulin. The insulin then is going to then unlock your cells to allow the sugar into the cells and out of the bloodstream where it will cause issues if it stays in the bloodstream. And the issue that we're finding is that more and more people, insulin is being released, yet it is not unlocking the cells. I talked about that. I explained why this is on episode 20. Let me get this for you. It was a pretty controversial show. I should have it right at my fingertips. And it was episode 2028. Sugar and carbohydrates do not cause diabetes, ? And it's an important show to listen to because everybody's blaming it on sugar and carbs. It's only half the equation. If you only understand half the equation, you will never get the answer correct, right? You might kind of guess at it, but if you achieve it, it was by accident. Better to know both parts to the equation. Okay, so we need to get those insulin receptors on the cells unplugged. And then you can eat carbohydrates again because then the glucose goes into the cell and we need to start moving our body so that you have a reason to burn glucose in the first place, right? So that's the insulin equation. But what we need to make sure is that your insulin is not too high. This is really important, really, really important. The reason is that if you have higher levels of glucose in your blood and you have higher levels of insulin, you have more of a fat storing hormone. So you have more fat going to be stored and less being burned. Your body doesn't typically do two things at the same time if they're converse, or if they're inverse to each other. So your body doesn't like to produce cortisol and melatonin at the same time. So you need to turn off cortisol at night if you want to get a good night's sleep with melatonin, the sleep hormone, right? And if you want to burn body fat, well, you really need to turn off insulin. And you want to turn off insulin simply by reducing blood glucose levels to a normal level. Now, we're not talking about zero, right? We're not talking about that. Normal levels of insulin. That's what we're talking about. Again, you can run this one on the hormone test. So it's called the stress hormones mood and metabolism. Test your hemoglobin A1C for blood sugar over the last 90 days, insulin, and a couple of other hormones that I'm about to talk about right now. That's it. Again, they're all at stevencabral.com/labs. Just understand that we don't own any of the labs. What we do is we use third-party certified, CLIA certified labs, and then we interpret the data for you and then devise a plan for you. It's honestly, it's that easy. So really important, insulin. Okay. Yeah. No processed carbs. No doubt about it. I agree with you. Can you have a flex meal once a week? 100%. When you get healthy, can you do it twice a week? Most likely, right? Most likely. And then we want to be really careful with those inflammatory fats. I talked much more about that on previous shows and on episode 2028. So we'll link that up here today at stevencabral.com/2049. That's today's show. All right. So that is the first two steps. We must control blood sugar and insulin. They work together. And we must decide and fix if it's a gut issue. Now, the third one is this, and it's not more complicated than the other two, not at all. But if you have higher levels of cortisol, a lot of people just say, well, it causes stress in your life, causes anxiety, causes sleeplessness. Yeah, 100%. Causes you to age faster, can lead to Alzheimer's. 100%, you're correct. What a lot of people don't know is that when cortisol spikes, that stress hormone, it endogenously, that just means inside of your body without you doing anything externally, raises blood sugar levels and it lowers thyroid levels. This is pretty wild that cortisol does this, but it does it on purpose. Here's why. When your body is told by the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, which tells the adrenals to produce stress hormones, stress neurotransmitters such as norepinephrine, excitatory neurotransmitter. We did a case study on that. Was it just yesterday? Yeah, it was just yesterday if you want to check that out on neurotransmitters. And it tells your body to produce stress hormones like norepinephrine and then glucocorticoids that we know as cortisol. Okay, so it produces these because it wants to get you into fight or flight. Now, when you're in fight or flight, you're not burning a higher degree of body fat. You are burning body fat, no doubt about it, but your body shifts to using more glucose as a fast fuel source. Because when you're in anaerobic metabolism, your body preferentially burns more glucose, sugar, and it uses oxygen as well to a small degree inside of the mitochondria, but really what it is lactic acid fermentation inside of the cells, inside of the mitochondria. A lot of people try to use endogenous ketones. Endogenous ketones can work, but not as well in an aerobic-based capacity. What your body really needs is glucose reserves, and it will get it whether you like it or not. So a lot of experts try to say, oh no, you'll just burn fat all the time. You won't. If you can test this with a glucometer. It's actually very simple. When you're in a high stress situation, or a lot of people, it happens just with drinking some black coffee in the morning on an empty stomach. That's why I say have it after breakfast. What happens is you can just test your blood sugar 30 minutes after having your black coffee. Did it rise above your pre-coffee? Or after a really hard resistance workout, did your glucose rise? You'll see that it does. Again, these are things that you can test. You can verify. You don't need to even listen necessarily to what I'm saying. Just listen, and then you can verify, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is this. That's not a bad thing. We have to understand that's not a bad thing. Chronic, excessive cortisol is a bad thing. It leads to lower thyroid, and when your thyroid's lower, well, you have drier skin, thinning of the hair, thinning of the eyebrows. You've got poor cold tolerance, typically cold hands and feet, poor circulation. You end up sometimes with higher levels of cholesterol. You can end up with hormone imbalances, lower hormones, lower metabolic rate, less calories can you eat without gaining weight. It's not a good thing. Your cortisol levels that were lowering thyroid, because thyroid is basically your thermostat. And it allows you to burn more calories. And if you're in a stressful situation, well, it's going to start to shunt digestion, blood flow to digestion, and it's going to slow down other metabolic processes such as thyroid. We see this over and over, again, from a clinical perspective, meaning like we run labs on people and we can actually see what's going on. This is really important because if you want to burn more body fat, especially around the belly, you have to have good functioning thyroid. Not just going to your PCP and them saying, oh, your thyroid's at 3.5. Everything's normal. It's not normal. Your thyroid should be between 8.5 and a 2 with strong T3 and strong T4. It's really important. And again, that's easy to test with the stress hormones mood and metabolism test right at home. Again, these things you can do right at home. And so all of this matters because cortisol also affects sleep. And if you're not getting at least 90 minutes deep and 2 hours of REM sleep, you're not recovering well enough, and you can end up with higher fasting glucose in the morning. So this is all fixable, but when you have elevated levels of cortisol, it can elevate your blood sugar, and if you don't exercise that off, what can happen is you end up accumulating body fat around the belly. We see it all the time in our practice. Thyroid and cortisol is known as the love handles and belly fat area, all right? And that is something that is important to look at so that you can address all of that. Now, you can address a lot of this, and people try to with fasting. I love fasting. I fast every single evening from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. Some people like to go longer, some people less. I will tell you this, it depends on the individual. A lot of people like to give you a set standard. Some people are like, oh, fast till lunch. Fasting till lunch does not work for a lot of people because if you use a glucometer and you see yourself spiking blood sugar levels anyways from stress in the morning, it's kind of like, what was the point? You know, you're fasting and you were fasting because you didn't want to eat anything to spike your blood sugar, yet you're doing that anyways because you're pushing your body into fight or flight. And believe it or not, carbohydrates actually calm cortisol levels and they can satiate the body and allow it to then work on its normal base capacity and you're able to burn body fat at the same time. So again, depends on the individual. All of this can be customized, but it's one thing to look at. Again, I love intermittent fasting. We don't want to overdo it, but we want enough of it because the intermittent fast will also help to bring down blood sugar levels as long as the cells are functioning normally, and that will reduce insulin as well. So if you are fasting, this is just an example from somewhere at 6 at night to 8 in the morning, well, it gives you 14 hours. You can have breakfast at 8, lunch at 12:30 or so, dinner at 5:30, and you can get in a good 14-hour fast still every single day and really begin to balance the body and begin to lower those blood sugar levels overnight, which is really important for fat burning because, believe it or not, you burn the greatest percentage of fat while you're sleeping overnight, as long as your blood sugar levels are within a normal range of about 70 to 95. So all of this, again, is not difficult to do, but sometimes we get too in the weeds. So what I want to do to help you with today is just say, is your lower belly bulge from gut-based issues? Or is it from too high of blood sugar between meals and fasted? Or is it from too much stress and elevated levels of cortisol? Now, it could be all three. There's no doubt about it. And you can work on all three of them at the same time. But it's important to look at that. And I think that the more information you have on this, then the more smart actions you can take. Meaning, like, I love to help people with short-term and long-term. Meaning, like, yeah, in the short term, I want to help you lose 10 to 20 pounds in 21 days. Now, anybody who's been in this industry for 20 years or so, they know how to do that healthily with people. We're not the only ones, but you can certainly work with good people and you're able to do that. Okay, so those are great short-term results. But we also need to work on the long-term issues, which is the elevated glucose, the elevated cortisol, lower thyroid, and potentially gut issues. Now, that we're going to work on over the next 6 to 12 weeks, and then we'll begin to wean off that protocol and program. So again, there's short-term results, long-term results. I see everybody working on short-term results, but making the long-term issues much longer and much more difficult to fix. Fix them today. You'll get better results. And really, I see it every day in my practice, and I just want to share the same with you. You don't have to work with us. You can work with any integrative health practitioner in the world. That's a level 2. You can find them at integrativehealthpractitioner.org. Just click on the practitioners. You're welcome to do that. You're welcome to work with your local naturopathic doctor, and you can work with us over at Equilife. And all of those labs also come with a consultation and a plan. And those are at stevencabral.com/labs. And of course, feel free to ask any questions as well. Thank you so much. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And of course, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Thank you so much for just tuning into the show. And before you go, I want to let you know about my all-time favorite offer going on right now over at Equilife. We ran this about a year ago, and we're doing it again this year. It will be the last time this year. And if you missed out on the Big 5 promotion going on about a month ago, you are not going to want to miss this. This is a fraction of the price, and it allows you to get 2 of our top at-home lab tests that's going to give you all of your vitamin levels, all your mineral levels, your heavy metals, your electrolytes, your stress, your mitochondrial levels. It looks at keto-based markers. It looks at gut function such as bacteria, candida overgrowth, and even mold markers. Plus, you're going to look at your overall digestion, methylation markers, and so much more. It is the perfect test that combines the candida, metabolic, and vitamins test with the minerals and metals test. But it's essentially half off. You save $300 this week while supplies last. Don't miss this. It's an amazing deal. It's my favorite way for people to get started if they're not able to do the Big 5. Head on over to stevencabral.com/starter-kit. That's stevencabral.com/starter-kit to save $299 right now and get free shipping. Let me know if there's any questions. Happy to help. Have an amazing day.